Welcome to the Hope of Zion podcast, a podcast done by a teen and a young adult to give you our perspectives on the Come Follow Me program as set up by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
This podcast is meant to be supplementary to your Come Follow Me study. It is not meant to replace it. But we hope that there are some insights along the way that help you and inspire you in your dedication to Jesus Christ in some way, shape, or form.
This week we are studying Matthew 27, Mark 15, Luke 23, and John 19.
Hello, Hadley. How are you doing?
Oh, hi. I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good.
That's good.
That's good. Can't complain. I'm trying a new camera angle out today.
I can see that. I like it. It's nice.
Yeah, I figured it's more eye level. You don't have to look up at me anymore.
Yeah. I'm trying a different mic thing today. Not that you can tell, but they can probably tell. Well, because
Another different mic thing.
Yeah, well, because I tried the different mic thing last week, and it was really bad. It probably didn't, I don't know how bad it sounded like in the actual video, because I fixed it. I went through and hand fixed it all, but I can't do that every single week. I would go insane.
I believe it.
So, we're attempting this.
Well, we learn as we go, and eventually we'll find the perfect mix of everything.
Yes. Eventually.
Yep. Alright, well, Hadley, what do you want to start with?
Oh, whatever you want to start. I'm kidding. I'm not completely sure. Like, obviously this week is like a big it's kind of important. I don't know. But so like it's like there's just so much. Like I don't know where to start. But if I did know where to start, I would start. I just thought of something while I was saying that, so I was just stalling for time. By the way.
Okay. Well, maybe we can start with first impressions. But some basic summary for anyone who hasn't opened this chapter from Come Follow Me or have memorized what these chapters mean in the Gospels is we are looking at Jesus Christ's crucifixion. Also kind of the final parts of his judgment, like the whole Pilate experience and some other details leading up to that moment in time. But we're going up until, so basically where we left off last week with him first facing Pilate all the way up until his crucifixion.
And, this is kind of silly, but every time I think of Pilate, the first two things I think of is like a Pilate episode on TV and Pilates, because that's how you spell Pilates, I think. Someone's gonna tell me I'm wrong, which I probably am, but that's all I can think of. But yes, that is
actually,
what
I have a question.
What?
Regarding Pilate, Hadley.
Mm-hmm.
What is your opinion of Pilate?
I think that's a really good question.
Like, do you think he is the biggest fool in the world for letting Jesus be given up to be crucified? Do you think he's just your everyday standard politician and kind of just generally a piece of crap, or do you sympathize with the guy a little bit?
I sympathize with him a little bit because, like, yeah, that's kind of a big, like, obviously, we're all like, oh, like, he should have just, like, let him go because that was within his power, but, that also brings up two other points, which is, if you were in that situation, what would you do? Like, if you imagine the scenario, like, his power is from the people, so if he goes against the people and lets Jesus go, he knows he lets go an innocent man, but then he can no longer ever do that again, probably because he's going to get fired. So, that kind of thing, like, because, like, he seems like a decent guy with, like, good judgment skills, so, like, if he was fired, we actually don't know. Something, like, really bad, like, someone, like, really bad could take his place and a lot of other innocent people could have died. Like, we don't know what the circumstances are with that, But not to mention, like, if it's your job at stake, and it's like something like that, like, it would be a lot harder for a lot. It would be a lot harder for people than some people might think. But the other point is, it was going to happen anyway, which sounds kind of like negative and bad, but it's part of the plan of salvation that Christ is crucified. So even if Pilate
fulfills prophecy.
Yeah, exactly. So even if Pilate were like, no, let's let this guy go, it probably would have gone back to that point anyway, which is, in the end, obviously, it's like, it's a sad thing, it's sad that it had to happen, but he did the atonement, like, everything was for us, right? And so, and it was supposed to happen, and it was going to happen anyway. So even if you see Pilate as someone who's like, why didn't he just let Jesus go? Like, obviously he didn't know, like, it was going to happen anyways, but still, if in the long run, when you think about it, I think he doesn't deserve hate at all. Like, it's not, like, that's kind of an awful situation, like a rock in a hard place situation to be put into, kind of thing. That was a really long ramble.
That is a very hot take.
Is it?
I think that's a hot take. If you were to look across the church, I think that is a very hot take. Because most of the time when we hear church leaders speak about Pilate, they don't necessarily sympathize with them. They're kind of like I was listening to the conference talk from Elder Holland yesterday called When We're With Him. It's from 2009. And he's talking about, and he kind of just details the story of the atonement and talking about Pilate. He's like, even though Pilate washed, this isn't an exact quote, but he basically says, even though Pilate washed his hands clean to say, I'm innocent from this murder, he's like, he could not be more, like, ironically hypocritical in that moment.
Well, yes. No. Pilate is not innocent. That is, like, the way I see it, he's a coward, but it doesn't matter that much in the long run. That is the way I see it.
He's not important to the story.
Well, he is important, but no matter what he would have done, it wouldn't have changed what happened. Does that make sense?
I think I understand what you're saying. I think I'm really interested to kind of go into the afterlife and speak with Heavenly Father and say, so how are you judging Pilate? Or like, ask Jesus, how do you judge Pilate righteously?
That's kind of ironic.
I definitely kind of understand the point that you're saying, like he definitely was put between a rock and a hard place where it's like he knew that this guy didn't do anything wrong, and so he didn't see any reason why this guy had to die, but at the same time he was very much peer pressure into doing so. And if they had let him go, it's possible the Pharisees would have just killed Jesus in the streets anyways. Who is to know? For me, I kind of see it like whenever we see big decisions, I don't know, maybe it's kind of like a way that we see any big decision from any political leader or from any like sports team even, like when a GM makes a big call on firing a coach or selling a player, you're like, how could you do that? Like, this person has so much significance to this team, or how can you make that policy choice with the economy and the state that it is or whatsoever? But it's like a lot of times you kind of are dealt with a lot of bad options and how you choose between them. But yeah, that's what I want to know is how is he being judged after this life? Because it's really probably not our place to kind of put Pilate down into spirit prison. I mean, he's going there, but like kind of going from there, like how does Heavenly Father evaluate stuff like that?
Yeah, that would be interesting to know. Yeah, but that's my perspective on Pilate, honestly. Like, because also if you think about it, like, if you, like, they always, like, okay, we're not going to actually say, like, the stuff, all the like health classes and stuff like that say you're gonna get peer pressured into, because like, but like, so we're just gonna use something else. But like imagine you're like peer pressured into watching this show, right? And you know it's not like a good show to watch, like it's like vulgar or something. Like if you imagine that scenario, like was it your choice to watch that show? Obviously. But also like you have to take into account all the other things, kind of thing. So,
Yeah, you don't understand all the circumstances kind of going on behind the scenes.
well, yeah, exactly. And also based like also like we only have what the scriptures tell us, like there could have been more going on, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah, kind of like I said, it's interesting thing to think about. But yeah, no, I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that and see where you went,
That's fair.
where you leaned, kind of on the I hate pilot scale.
Pretty mid as far as that goes.
Yeah. So what impressions did you have over the course of this last week?
Well, I have two main things that I wanted to talk about. The first being there's a thing in the lesson and now I lost it and can't find it, which is so much fun. That is like, where is it? Oh, it's it's like in the personal study section, and like the caption is mocking cannot change the truth, and it's talking about how like a bunch of people like mocked Jesus, but like that doesn't change that like that does not change anything, like no matter what they thought about him. And I think
about like who Jesus was and so on.
And I think that's an important, I don't know, I felt like it was an important thing to highlight, just because I don't know, you think about it and you're like, that happens all the time, like people are like made fun of a lot, like whether it is just for fun or like whether it's like rude or not. And I think it's important to like remember, like there's a certain thing to be said for like oh my gosh, like value and stuff like that. Like if someone like handed you $100 bill and was like, this is worth nothing, like, but like if you went and brought it to someone else, they could be like, this is worth everything. Except that's not, I don't know, I used $100 bill. We're gonna use something else. Pretend like
I think that's still applicable.
Yeah.
I think $100 bill still works, because $100 bill might mean a lot for me, but it doesn't mean jack squat for Elon Musk.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah. Or like, if you like, I'm trying to remember. I had some lesson kind of about this, and I can't remember like what they used. Oh, they used like a toy of theirs or something, and they're like, this is like my favorite toy growing up as a child, kind of thing. So like, but like also like, yeah, but also like just like understanding that like mocking doesn't make anything. That doesn't make sense. I don't know what I just said. Mocking and stuff like that doesn't define who you are. But also it's something a lot of people go through. And I thought that was an important thing to bring up. That was the first point I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, and I thought that this was a really unique point that was brought up in the Come Follow Me manual. I mean, when you're reading about the crucifixion, you're reading all these moments, you know, you could talk about how Jesus died for us, and you could talk about the things that he said on the cross, which I kind of want to allude to a little bit later. And you can read about all these other things. Like last week, we talked about Peter's denial. We talked about, you could talk about what Christ said while he was kind of on trial being judged, how people chose Barabbas over Jesus. You could go on on all these different little events and analyze them in lots of different ways. But I thought it was really interesting that they picked a whole section and they said, and I felt like, I don't remember what the rest of the thing said. I just knew that the sentence was very well put because it was so powerful, was mocking cannot change the truth. So and I think you get multiple lessons from that one, no matter how no matter how much persecution you receive, it doesn't change the reality of what you're experiencing. Like someone might make fun of the fact of the experiences you have in the temple, or for you saying that you've gotten a spiritual impression, but it doesn't change the impression that he's not. I think it also does kind of put a lot on the way that Christ might be spoken about today in modern media, but it doesn't change who he was, because what he was is a reality. And I thought that was very unique, very different, and very powerful. So that was something that also really kind of jumped out to me this week.
Yeah. Also, my other example is Joseph Smith, because he literally saw Jesus and God, and he told people, and they were all like, "You liar! Stop it! Stop lying! You didn't!" And he was like, "Oh, okay, but I did."
Could you just imagine that in a modern context? Sorry, I'm feeling a little silly today apparently.
Same.
Could you imagine a modern dialogue of this? He's like, "Dude, guess what? I saw God the Father and His Son Jesus Christ," and his friend at work's like, "Oh no, you didn't!"
It's
Anyways, I'm sorry I drove the spirit away. I'm just kind of thinking about a modern slang version of that conversation. You're like, "Fool, you crazy!"
Yeah, but literally, there's so many analogies you could use. You could literally be you are wearing a hat, or do you remember that Dr. Seuss book? I think it was a Dr. Seuss book. There was some book that I read when I was a child, and this person had a hat on, and someone else was like, "You have to take off your hat, it's not allowed," wherever he was. And he was like, "Okay." So he takes off his hat, and there's another one under it, and they're like, "You didn't take off your hat." And he's like, "No, I did, but there's still one on there." And so he
Sounds like an interesting children's book.
It was an interesting, yes, it was, and I don't remember what book it was, but again, as they might see it as no, you didn't take your hat off, but yes, you did, kind of thing. So that was another analogy.
I thought you were gonna go Cat in the Hat.
Oh no.
Yeah, no, I think it's important. I think that this truth generally is really important to think about because a lot of times, we kind of talk about in the modern narrative of what's your truth, and it kind of goes back to that, what's the truth, and kind of not just what's the truth, but also are we standing up for the truth, even when we're being mocked for it. Or as the scriptures put it, stand fast and steadfast in the faith of the Lord. So I think that's kind of another direction.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Okay.
Next topic.
We gotta work on our transitions.
Yeah, we do.
we gotta find something else besides awkward silences. And the word "cool." So there's one thing that I really wanted to talk about, and I want to talk about this one moment while Christ was on the cross, where he says the very powerful statement, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." And I just want to take a second to marvel at how crazy of a thing that is, and how magnificent of a thing that is for Christ to take all the awful things, and you read about all of them, all the awful things that the Romans and the Pharisees and the rest of the Israelites put him through the crucifixion. Of course, it's necessary. And we always emphasize how important all those things were for the atonement, so that he could feel what we're feeling. But what's the most incredible is he feels everything that we're feeling, and then Christ is sitting there on the cross, is like, "Hey, Father, just forgive them." And he just drops it like that. Drops it on the top of the hat. And I just want to take a second to marvel at, one, I want us to be able to fully recognize how difficult that is to do. That is such an incredibly difficult thing to do. Just think about the last time someone did something that really kind of just, set you off, right?
I have a...
It doesn't even have to big thing. Sorry, let me finish this one sentence. Okay. It's it doesn't even have a big thing. Say someone just, cut you off while you were driving, right? And you're like, "You jerk," you know? Or something small like that, where it's it has zero significance to your life. You're never going to see that person again, but you resent that person for the rest of your life. How hard is it to drop that? To drop even that sometimes, depending on the day. But he's just nah, just forget about it. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, it's totally fine. So the way I think about this is, okay, I have two ways I think about this, but I released a short video on my channel a couple days ago, and on Instagram it was getting a lot of hate comments and stuff like that, and I don't care about hate comments a lot. When you first see them, you just kind of go oh, that was kind of rude, but okay, right? But also you get to this point where you're well, I don't care anymore. That's okay. But you don't really forgive them, because that's hard. It's hard to be I understand they might have something else going in their life, and not just be well, they just wanted to comment that because they're a bad person, kind of thing. That is one of the ways I see it. The other way I see it is also I know a lot of people who hold grudges for a very long time. And you see the way it affects them in their life, and how it just kind of makes everything worse. And so it's insane to think that he didn't even have a second thought about holding on. I don't know if anything I'm saying makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Okay, that's good. But just the fact that it is so insane, because I feel like there's a lot of things in the gospel, especially when we're doing Come Follow Me, that people like to highlight a lot. And this is definitely one of them. But I think some of them I don't feel need to be highlighted as much. But this one does. There's something about it.
I think it's totally underestimated.
Really? I feel like I hear it a lot.
Are you just talking about forgiveness generally?
No, this specific quote.
Okay. Sorry, keep going.
But I think it's so important to recognize and understand. And I think it's a vital part of learning to forgive people ourselves. Because, like you said, that is so difficult. Even the smallest things. And I think it's kind of a like a like a thing that's kind of like expected of a lot of people is like, oh, like not like that you hate people, like obviously no, but like a lot of people like have like this general like, oh, like not everyone's gonna like forgive me for things kind of things. And also like,
or if someone hurts you, you're never going to talk to them again.
yeah, exactly. And that also causes so many problems because then you get like trauma and people who are so scared of disappointing people that they can barely do anything without like, or like whenever they get yelled at they like cry or something like that. Like it causes so many problems, but that's a whole other tangent I could go on. um but just like in the grand scheme of things, like it's like, because okay, other thing, sorry, I am having so many thoughts at one time right now. I don't know if you can tell. I don't know, things just come out of my mouth and I never know if they make sense.
You're good. It all tracks.
So there's so many things, like there's so many infinitesimal things that happen during your lifetime that people are like, just get over it, you're not going to remember it in 100 years. This, like, one moment in time is so big and so important that he could forgive all those quote-unquote infinitesimal things that weren't infinitesimal, that were huge, that hurt him a lot. But also, it is so important that it is something that was made sure to be carried through all the different translations that have been done of the Bible. Not like different versions, but like different translations. I don't know, I've never read a different version of the Bible used by other religions. But like, and I don't know the history of the Bible that well. I am literally not an expert. But if you think about it, like, there's no way there weren't things that were originally in what John wrote. John? I don't know what chapter it's in. John, Matthew, or Luke wrote that aren't in the Bible today. Like, there's gotta be, like, a couple things at least. We know, like, that happened in the Book of Mormon. Like, Moroni literally says, like, something like, there's not even, like, a fourth of everything in here. But
John says that as well.
Oh, really? So, yeah.
Yeah, at the end of John, like, the end of this 20th chapter of John, I want to say, he says pretty much the same thing. He says, like, if you could include all of the acts of Christ throughout his life, like, not all the books in the world can contain that.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that this one was so important for him to, like, put in there and for it to be kept throughout every single, like, through the thousands of years it took to get here in this generation outlines how important it is. And you could probably use that logic for a lot of different things in the Bible. But I think this one specifically is very important. I just rambled on for like 20 minutes.
It was a good chunk of time. But that's okay. But like, what you're getting to is exactly kind of to the second point that I wanted to make about the scripture is like when I said underestimate earlier, I didn't mean we don't use necessarily that scripture a lot. What I meant by underestimate is, despite the frequency of that we use that scripture in our lessons on forgiveness or anything else, I don't think we fully appreciate what that verse is. Like, we almost use it kind of flippantly, if I dare say, when talking about forgiveness. Probably not all the time. I'm sure there's some people who have said it this way, but like, I feel like a lot of times when we've talked about Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, we're like, well, Jesus did it while he was on the cross. And it's like, No, step back for a second. Let's take a couple steps back here. Jesus did it while he was on the cross. Like, he was moments from death. He probably didn't even have the mental capacity to think about forgiveness. But he did it, and he forgave them fully and completely. And that's kind of what I meant earlier about underestimating. It's like, I don't think we, and I feel like what you were kind of saying as well, is I don't think we fully appreciate what that action was and how remarkable it was, and how that should kind of help us create a greater standard for ourselves in terms of us forgiving others for whether it's day-to-day things or larger issues that are going on in our lives.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I mean, there are lots of stories in the church about forgiveness and how, like, forgiving right away is a good thing. Forgiving not right away is a really bad thing. I could quote different conference talks and stuff about it. But I think, like, it's so important to look at this story. Christ being literally nailed to a couple pieces of wood, a couple planks. He just forgives them for it. I don't think he forgave them just because he knew that this was fulfilling the plan of salvation. I mean, that might be part of it, but I think it was also more than that. He was forgiving them as individual people, making their individual mistakes. But yeah, so that to me is a huge storyline in this week is kind of forgiveness. I know that I can be better at forgiving. I know that I mean, there's definitely a quote given. I heard it from Lynn G. Robbins, I believe, where you can forgive someone without kind of forgetting them, like forgetting what they did. Like, you don't have to forget what they did to forgive them, but you do have to forgive them. But yeah, I think that's a tough line to cross. Yeah. It's a difficult thing and something that I'm working on, but I think that's a really important narrative, because a lot of the things that we read about in the crucifixion is kind of on a last point on this issue. A lot of the stuff we read about the atonement is so that we can know how Christ suffered for us and how he can empathize with us, the things that we're going through. And I think it's important because we can look at that from a perspective of, and Christ also forgave, so we can forgive also.
Yeah. Just to like emphasize a point you brought up slightly earlier, and I won't go on too long about this probably. And I won't go on. I'll try my best. But
I can always cut you off if you want.
You probably should. But there is a certain merit to. You don't have to forgive someone and think what they did was okay.
Oh yeah,
like
not,
those
forgiveness isn't condoning.
Yeah, and I think that's something a lot of people.
And you don't have to
together.
This is something else that Lynn G. Robbins also said, was that forgiveness doesn't mean allowing them to hurt you again. It's just not holding it against them.
Yeah, exactly.
In a way.
Is there more you want to talk about, or should we wrap up?
Did you have more to say on that, or did I just steal everything?
No, I didn't. That was all I could say more on it, but I won't for the sake of time.
Okay. I think we have been going for at least half an hour.
Probably.
So, if we want to keep it at that, we can end. And that's okay, or?
Okay, we can. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you learned something or felt something or had some kind of impression, and yeah, thank you for watching.
Thank you, and we'll see you next week.